We're almost halfway through the year, and a lot of people are running on empty without fully realizing it. Grow Therapy helps you find care that's covered by insurance before burnout becomes the baseline. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
A young girl is haunted by reoccurring nightmares. But eventually she finds out these nightmares may be real. And then we take a look at the story of a young family just trying to live their life, like all of us. But when they end up getting a break, a new apartment that they feel will help them start their lives together, none of them ever expected that this apartment may be home to a sinister threat that will destroy them from within. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. We got a ton of stuff to cover today, so first off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. You know them, you love them. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Art, Maria, and Artorias. Woohoo! Yeah, they're running on into Dead Rabbit Radio Command, running laps around the place. Art and Maria, longtime supporters of the show through the Patreon. They come to the Dead Rabbit Radio movie nights. Very active in the old live episodes we used to do. We don't do those anymore, but they would swing by for those as well. And Artorias as well. He's their son, so he can't give money for the Patreon, but it's a family thing. It's a family thing. Art, Maria, and Artorias, because you guys all support the show financially and are the subject of our second story. They submitted it to us. That is why you are going to be our captain, our pilots this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially, it's totally fine. It really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get this party started. Art, Maria, and Artorias. I'm going to go ahead and toss you. What vehicle haven't we used in a while? Oh, I know, their favorite vehicle. This is the vehicle that they love the most. Artorias loves the sound effects. Everyone hop on board the bunny bicycle as Art, Maria, and Artorias ride us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way out to a neighborhood in Anywhere, USA. Inca, Inca, Inca. Inca, Inca, Inca. Inca, Inca, Inca. And then Artorias can use the horn. Arrgh. Arrgh. That's a special Artorias thing. There we go. Added a new sound effect. They're like, we don't like that sound effect. Boo. We just like the squeaky bike. Get rid of the horn. They're biking us out to this friendly looking neighborhood. This first story's pretty short, but pretty chilling at the same time, so make sure that you're not easily scared. I might be building it up a little bit. You're like, oh, I'm putting on my pee pants just in case I poop my pants. Jason said this one's spooky. I don't know, it's spooky to me, but I'm a big baby, which is ironic considering what my job is, professional ghost hunter. But anyways, we're biking all the way out to this neighborhood. The year is 2013. And we're about to meet a little girl. We don't have her real name. We're going to call her Beverly. And she said she was around 4 or 5 in 2013. And she's living in this house. It's the same house her mother used to live in. It's kind of like a family home. And Beverly, when she's around 4 or 5, she starts to get these horrible nightmares. These dreams would always start the same. She'd be sitting in her bedroom and something would draw her attention outside her bedroom window. And she'd look out into the spooky night and see a ghost family. And they're floating there outside her bedroom window. Well, actually, did she say they were floating? What? They could have been standing on the ground now that I think about it. Maybe she just looks out her window and they're standing in the front yard. What's spookier? What would activate your pee pants? If you looked out your window and you saw a family of ghosts standing out in your lawn, or a family of ghosts floating. Floating just a few inches above your lawn. You're like, ah! I think I would probably not take them so seriously if they were floating, right? That's kind of goofy looking, like Casper or something like that, Beetlejuice. But I don't know if Beetlejuice floats, but you know what I mean. Like, if you saw a guy, what would be scarier? Jason, clearly, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, what would be scary if you were walking down the street and you saw a hobo standing on the street corner, or you saw a hobo flying? He's hovering off the ground. Obviously, the hovering hobo is way more menacing. But, you're right. Okay, that's a bad analogy. But anyways, okay, so whatever scarier picture them doing that, I just think it's funny if they're floating there. That's what I thought they were. But I double-checked my notes. She wasn't clear. She sees a ghost family floating and or standing outside of her bedroom window. And it's a family of 4. She sees a mom and a dad, and then a boy and a girl. Oh, and a baby, too. So it's a family of 5. What's creepier, a standing baby or a floating baby? It's a family of 5, a mom, a dad, a boy, a girl, and then a baby. And she'd be looking out the window and she'd see this family standing there. When all of a sudden, she said their faces would expand. Now, I imagine that as their jaw, like, unhinging and going, oh! Because that would be personally spooky to me. That's what I think it is. I don't think she's talking like Big Trouble in Little China, where they all hold their breath and their heads actually get bigger. What's scarier to you, a hobo whose head looks like it's about to blow up? Or a hobo with an unhinged jaw? She said their faces would expand, and then, this is why I had the original visual, and then they would fly directly towards her. So I think that's probably why I thought they were floating in the first place. She would see their faces expand and then they'd begin flying towards her. The dream would always start off that way. The rest of it was different, because she would do different things. As this ghost family is flying towards her from outside of her house, she runs out of her bedroom and she's desperately looking around the home for someplace to hide from them. One dream she chooses a closet, while another dream she may have tried to run into the basement. Sometimes she might have made it to her parents' bedroom and hid under their bed, while other times she may have made it to the living room and took cover behind a couch. But no matter what she did in these dreams, no matter where she hid, the ghost family would always find her. No matter where she went or where she hid, the ghost family would find her, and then they would kidnap her. They would actually drag her out of her own house, take them back to their house, and lock her up in their basement. No, I want to see my mom again! I want to see my mom! Ah! Ghost slams the door. No! Beverly would wake up. Jason, that was too scary. I didn't think you were going to voice the desperate cries for a young girl who go unheard, locked in a ghost basement. Yeah, it was kind of creepy. Even as I was doing it, I go, this might be a little too far. She'd have these reoccurring dreams. She had them when she was really young, and eventually they just kind of stopped. Well, let's fast forward to the year 2021. Beverly is now a 13-year-old girl. One day she's hanging out with her mom, and she had never told her mom about these dreams. She never mentioned it to her mom. But at age 13, she's talking to her mom, and she goes, hell, Mom, that reminds me. I remember back when I was a kid, I used to have these really creepy dreams. Mom goes, oh, really? And Beverly goes, yeah, I'd have these dreams that there was this ghost family floating outside our house or standing outside her house. She didn't specify, even to her mother. She said there's this ghost family. It was a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister, and a baby. And then they would chase me around our house and find me and then kidnap me and take me and lock me in their basement. I had the dream quite a few times. When she's telling the story to her mom, she goes into a little more detail as to what the ghosts look like. Because she'd seen them so many times, she kind of, could describe how they were and how they acted. Floating, obviously, faces expanding. As Beverly's telling the story, Mom begins listening more and more intently. And then she goes, Beverly, I don't mean to alarm you, but, I grew up in the same house that you grew up in. I don't think they live in this house at this point. But that house, when you were that little girl, I grew up in that house as well. And when I was a little girl, there was this family that I always used to hang out with. It was a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister, and a baby. And I hung out with them a lot. I was friends with the kids. And they actually kind of looked like the dream you described. Minus the floating and the kidnapping and the expanded faces. But, yeah. That family, I know the family you're talking about. And Beverly goes, what? The mom goes, yeah. And you know what? Something interesting happened when I was a little kid. I remember one day, that entire family just left. They moved. Like that. And no goodbyes, nothing. They just packed everything up and left their house, left the neighborhood. I never saw the kids again and never even heard from them after all these years. It's interesting because this is a story that the basic element of it is that this is a ghost family haunting this daughter, the daughter of an old friend. But we have different layers to it. Them just packing up and leaving one day, while odd, it does happen from time to time in neighborhoods. It is rare, because most of the time it takes a process to leave, but it's not impossible. Someone just leaves. And at the time you may question, I wonder why they just packed up and left. Maybe they were on the run from the law. Maybe they were on the run from floating ghosts. Maybe their house was haunted. But life goes on, and you just think it's odd when your neighbor just up and leaves. But it's not so unusual that you would think there was anything paranormal involved. So it's not so much that the family was obliterated by some sort of evil presence and now their souls were locked in to this hellish state where they were going to haunt the daughter of one of their friends. That all happened when Beverly's mom was young. So let's say that the mom was, say, 10 when she was hanging out with these kids and they left. And let's just assume the mom had Beverly when she was 20 and Beverly's 5 when she started having these nightmares. So 15 years passed between the time the family disappeared and the time the nightmares began. And I'm just kind of pulling these numbers out of the air. Beverly's mom may have had her when she was a teen. Beverly's mom may have had her when she was 30. We don't know, but I think you guys get what I'm saying. There's a period of time. So it's not like the family disappeared because of some sort of paranormal problem. It's not like a portal opened up and sucked them all in. A period of time passed. What's really interesting is, let's say it's a 15-year gap between the time the family disappeared and the time the ghosts appear. Why did they target Beverly? Was it because they were in that home? The home that the mom was playing with the kids in? Kids come over to the mom's house sometimes mom goes over to the kid's house. Is that why? What was the link? The Beverly's mom didn't have any sort of beef against this family. If anything, she was always curious and maybe even concerned. An entire family left one day, but as a child herself, she couldn't really do anything about it. Why would there be a gap? Is it possible, this would be my read on it, they lived for another, say, 15 years and then died as a family. All 5 of them were ghosts. And for whatever reason decided to torment Beverly, who had never met them. Why are the ghosts showing up there? I mean, the house did have a connection to them. They never lived in it, but we can presume they visited it from time to time. They were good friends. The families were friends. I'm assuming the kids are friends. For sure. Why torment Beverly? Why kidnap her? Actually, what's an interesting question, too, is... Now, I didn't think about this. They were... Okay, wait a second. This is the thing about this show. Sometimes I have one theory, and then once I'm talking out loud, I kind of pick up on stuff. The family... Well, this totally changes everything. It's not like Beverly said, yeah, it was really weird. There's a mom and a dad, and then a son and a daughter who are around your age, Mom. And then a younger person, not a baby though, maybe a teenager, maybe someone in their 20s. The family didn't age. The family actually was the same age that Beverly's mom remembered playing with them at. The young boy, the young girl, and the baby. The boy and the girl were around her age, and then the baby. Because she described the family, and the mom goes, that's the family that I used to hang out with. So, did they live for 15 years and then die and then return as their younger selves? The baby is a ghost baby, even though he lived to get a college degree and was about to get a job at Microsoft. Maybe the family did die. Maybe the family did die back then, and it was either covered up or nobody knew what it was. What's interesting is I've learned this recently from 2 things. One, I have a friend who does estate sales. And then I watched a horror movie about a haunted estate sale. And I didn't know this. I learned more from the horror movie than from my friend. That sometimes people just die. I mean, I obviously knew that. And then all their stuff, though, is left there. And if there's nobody there to take care of it, assuming that any of the stuff you have is worth it, will have an estate sale, and anything that's not sold will either be given away free or just thrown in a dumpster. And I guess I never thought about that before. They'll just toss it. And my place, I don't have a ton of stuff of value, obviously, like a laptop computer, and I guess that's it. That's the only thing that has any sort of resale value. My collection of books, those are cool and all. But probably most of my stuff will end up in a dumpster or at Goodwill. And Goodwill will probably throw some of it away. If I died, all my stuff would just be here. And people might think I moved away. Like, let's say, okay, let's back up here. Because I'm constantly talking about paranormal and conspiracies and stuff, I think if I disappeared, people would assume something went wrong. I don't think anyone would be like, oh, he's probably just moved away and didn't tell anybody. I think most people would go, well, he probably told the wrong story on his podcast, and they got him. And they whisked him away somewhere, or some leprechaun tricked him into going into a portal or whatever. I guess it is possible for a family to meet some sort of misfortune outside of their home. Well, is it? And then people just assume they moved away. I think it would depend on a couple different factors. If you are a well-to-do citizen, here's the thing, I have a reputation in this town, and I have a reputation all over because of the podcast. People know who I am. I pay my bills on time. I show up to work on time. All of that stuff. I put out the podcast on time, or at least I try. If one day went by and I wasn't at work and they didn't receive a phone call, they would alert the police. I think it probably wouldn't even take a day because I'm always there. Probably within a couple hours of when my shift starts, they'd be like, where's Jason? That's unlike him to not show up. But I guess if you were a family and you had moved into an area and you'd only been there for a year or two, you didn't have any roots, you had just seemed to move in and then one day just seemed to move out and left most of your stuff there. I'm sure that can happen, right? A family could disappear and it not be considered super suspicious. Does that make sense? Like if there's not any blood splatter, there's no broken windows, anything like that. If the bills are paid up, or even better, they've always had a hard time paying their bills and then one day they just leave. the landlord would say, yeah, I kind of figured that family was flighty. It was really hard getting money from them. They were behind on their cable bill and they were behind on their electric bill. And they just packed up. They didn't pack up, they just left. They would be frozen in time as ghosts if something happened to them then. Because I have heard stories about that, where a family's in an area and then they're just gone and they leave all their stuff behind. It's weird because those stories do pop up in paranormal stories. I wouldn't say very often, but I've read a couple of them and they are always linked to the paranormal. I don't know what happened to this family when I was a kid. One day they were just gone and they left all their stuff. I remember there was one story, and this sucked because it was before the podcast. So, of course, I wasn't like saving documents or archiving websites. I remember reading the story a long time ago on the X-Board. And this guy said, in my neighborhood, there was this family I used to hang out with the kid. And we were pretty good friends. And then one day, the family left. They just up and left. And I think he was like a teenager or something like that when all that happened. Because of the second part, he goes, what happened was, later on, we went over to their house because their house is kind of just like an abandoned spot. And he goes, I was curious as to what happened, why they moved away. He goes, so I think a friend of his went into the home where this family used to live. And he goes, there was nothing there. They had taken all of their furniture and everything. But they thought that was weird because there was never any moving trucks. Obviously, you wouldn't think it was a mystery if you saw moving trucks pull up. He goes, the house was completely empty, but as we were walking through it, we got to the master bedroom, and we couldn't open the door. It seemed like there was something against the door on the other side of the master bedroom door, and we couldn't get it open no matter what. So we went outside of the house, and we looked in the window of the master bedroom. Every single piece of furniture they had was crammed into the master bedroom. Beds, couches, hutches, dressers, tables, all of it. Every piece of furniture that they had in that home was stuffed into the master bedroom, so much so that you couldn't get the bedroom door open. Because there was so much stuff. Imagine taking every piece of furniture you have and putting it in one room. And he goes, the weird part, obviously, well, there's a bunch of weird parts. One, you have this family disappear. Two, you had that. But he goes, I don't even know how you could physically do that. Like, you could get a lot of it in there, but to get so much furniture in there that you can no longer open the door? How did you get the last pieces of furniture in if you couldn't open the door to get them in? So I have come across stories like that over the years that involve a family just missing, but not missing. It's the same thing like when this happens a lot, right? Your girlfriend or your boyfriend, they're missing. And a lot of times when you go to the police, this is no way to discourage you, but you go to the police and they'll go, oh, okay, you guys are both in your 20s and your girlfriend, you just can't find her anymore. And you go, yeah. And the police, sometimes, if they don't start to see any evidence of foul play, especially depending on how busy the police department is, they'll say, hey, listen, dude, I hate to break it to you, but it's totally legal for a 25-year-old woman to just move and go to another town and not tell you, or really tell anybody. So depending on the circumstances, they may investigate it as a missing person. They'll take the report. But they may, especially if they know she had just moved into town a year ago from wherever, and now she left this town a year later, they're not going to break their backs looking for someone, an adult, who has the right to just leave, the freedom to travel. So there has to be that idea that there might have been something sinister going on for the police to go, where did this family go? How did a whole family disappear? Well, families are allowed to just leave. So it's an interesting story. Those families just disappearing, though, do pop up in paranormal stories from time to time. You're always left with the question, is this a paranormal story? Is this a family eluding law enforcement? Is it some sort of witness protection? They're being moved? Or is there a more sinister force? And this one, you think, the family has died. Here's the thing. Originally, I was going to say that the family died later in life and their ghosts are coming back to that home for some reason. But I don't really think that that's the case anymore, because the family is as they appeared when they vanished or left. Vanished is the more sinister option, and then left is just, a family moves away. But whatever the case, they reappeared as ghosts in that form at those ages. So maybe something did happen to them in a sinister way. And people just thought a family packed up and moved away, when in fact something happened to them. And not only did something happen to them, they came back as phantoms and was attacking a young girl, maybe in a way reenacting what happened to them on Beverly. Maybe it's a clue. Actually, yeah, that would be interesting. We don't know where the story takes place. I guess I could reach out to Beverly. Maybe the family's buried in the basement. Maybe they weren't kidnapping her. Maybe they're like, come and find us. Come and find our bones. But, after the 10th reoccurring nightmare, the family's like, this isn't working. I don't know why we're trying to communicate with a little girl. We're just scaring her. I guess her bones are going to stay in the basement of their house. Remember, they were taking her back to their home in that neighborhood. That'd be interesting. I should email Beverly. The reason why I didn't, because I had a different hypothesis originally. But now I am thinking something sinister might have happened to that family. Okay, Art, Maria, and Artorias, I'm going to toss all of you matching keys to the world-famous Carpenter Copter. We are leaving goodbye this young girl and her expanding face phantoms. Why don't you fly us all the way out to Texas? Here's another part of our user-submitted story week, or we're going to be covering stories that listeners like you have sent in involving experiences they had. This is quite the crazy one. It's actually sent to me probably around a year ago at this point. I waited so long to tell it because it's so spooky. Like, Jason, no, you're lying. That last story wasn't that spooky. Is this one spooky? Yeah, this one is spooky. That's not the reason why I wanted to cover it. It's just I'm bad at covering stuff. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. And thank you, Art and Maria, for sending this in. We're headed all the way out to Texas. Specifically, we're headed to Austin, Texas. The year is 2016. Oh, watch out, everybody. Oh, watch out, everybody. Oh, watch out, everybody. The large mechanical phantom says as Art and Maria walk into a Halloween festival in Austin, Texas. There's all sorts of vendors, everything from pumpkin sellers. What else would you sell their pumpkin pie? You just put it in the freezer till Thanksgiving. Vendors, people walking around with cotton candy. More pumpkin stuff. I guess probably you could buy candy there as well. Homemade candy from the Candy Witch. No, welcome everybody. That's not what he said the first time. Yeah, I already forgot too. It's like a big attraction. It's a fair. And Art and Maria, this young couple in love, are walking through the Halloween festival. And Maria goes, Art, look. It's a fortune teller. And Art goes, oh yeah, Maria. Would you like to get your fortune told? Of course! It's Halloween! It's Halloween festival. I'm so full off eating pumpkins. I've had a pumpkin at every vendor. Okay, enough pumpkins. This is the first non-pumpkin related thing we've seen. The fortune teller's crystal ball is a crystal pumpkin. Maria, on a whim, goes to see a fortune teller. And the fortune teller goes, oh yes, Maria, I guessed your name. I read it off your credit card when you handed it to me. I see in your future, you will soon lose your job. But fret not, young lady. You're going to get a new job, a better job. Also, the fortune teller says as she's rubbing her crystal pumpkin, I see that you want to move out. You and your boyfriend or husband at this time, I'm not for sure. The fortune teller should know, but I don't know. You and your lover want to move out soon. That will also become a reality. But you're going to have to wait a few months for that. And all of that was true. Well, Maria didn't know she was going to lose her job. That came true. But her and Art did want to move out together. And it had been, you're trying to like get all your assets together, trying to find the right place, all of that stuff. But by June 17th, so really just a few months later, all of that stuff happens. She does end up moving into an apartment with Art. And this apartment complex, nowadays it's known as Sotol Riverside. But when they moved in, it was called Rosemont at Oak Valley. Nice little apartment complex. Or is it? Allegedly for the new owners of Sotol Riverside, I'll have to say allegedly, it might be isn't. They get a first floor apartment, and within 2 weeks of moving in, Maria starts to get really sick. But it's not the mold. It's not some sort of scabby infection as she's sleeping in a bed full of bed bugs. No, like I said, this is a nice apartment complex. Or is it? She's not sick because of any of that. She's actually pregnant. Art, we're going to have a baby. There's a baby growing inside of me. It's like, that's kind of a weird way to put it, but yay, I'm going to be a dad. Art actually has a son from a previous relationship, but still, right? A new life being born. He's going to love Artorias as much. I forgot the name of his other son. I've played video games with him. Is it Damien? I don't remember, but I've played video games, Battlefield 6 with Art and his older son. We're going to have a baby, Art. And that is the reason why Maria was getting sick. However, this is really the first sign something could be going wrong. This isn't normal pregnancy sickness. Maria is sicker than sick. She's really, really sick during this entire process of the pregnancy. And in fact, Artorias, which would be their son's name, he was having complications as well. He was born 5 weeks premature. Holding little baby Artorias. Little wiggling human in the palm of their hand. He was that small. They're all, I guess, hope you like the flea circus, buddy. You're going to be hanging out with a lot of fleas as the ringmaster. No, I mean, but, he was 5 weeks premature, but also, Artorias is really sick. Now that Artorias is being born, we do see an uptick. At the time, they don't know this, but now looking back, this is really when it seems a lot of the paranormal activity began to surface in the house. It may have been there before, but now it's all coming to a head, much like a baby coming out of a womb. It's disgusting, Jason. Well, it's the same thing. That's where that term comes from. Coming to a head. It's a little head sticking out of a human womb. Art and Maria would be sitting in the living room and they'd hear Artorias crying. Wee, wee. And Art's like, don't worry, honey, I'll go take care of it. I'll go check on the baby. So Art gets up and he walks through the apartment and he opens Artorias' bedroom door. They probably all slept in the same bedroom at this point because he's still a baby, but he opens a bedroom door. Artorias is sleeping soundly. This kept happening. They would clearly hear him crying, and when one of them went to go check on him, there was no way it was him. He's just dead asleep. Like, in the first couple times that happens, you'd go, oh, maybe my baby just fell asleep. Cried it out of him, maybe. Cried so much he got sleepy. But at a certain point, you have to start to look back at this and go, a mimic? Is something in their house impersonating Artorias' cries? But you're not really thinking about it. That's not something that you would jump to. Art and Maria had bigger problems to worry about, whether or not some sort of phantom was imitating their child, which is a pretty big problem, sure. But we're looking at it from a paranormal view. They're looking at it as parents, just trying to get by. Art and Maria, they're a pretty chill couple. I've talked to them for hours and hours over the years, both of them at the same time. They're a pretty chill couple. And Maria said, we've always been a chill couple. We dated for a while, we got married, everything was cool. But after we moved into the apartments, after we moved into Rosemont at Oak Valley, me and Art started fighting. And this wasn't baby waking them up at all times of the night, the stress of being a parent. Fights. because sometimes that can put stress on a relationship. She goes, we started breaking into these screaming matches. And we had never done that before. These huge fights kept happening all the time. Now, this is something they could both look at and think, why am I screaming at my wife? Not in the heat of the moment. In the heat of the moment, they'd think they were totally justified in the way they were yelling. But afterwards, they'd be like, what is going on? Why am I screaming at my wife? And Maria, the same thing. Why am I so mad at Art? This doesn't make any sense. We've never been like this before. Still, they're not thinking of it being a paranormal issue, because you wouldn't. You would just think this was part of life. I think this is the moment where, at the time, they go, something's wrong. Paranormally wrong. When Artorias was around 8 to 9 months old, this thing started happening. They began to go, okay, something's off. In their apartment, they have a guest bathroom near the living room, and it's built to be handicap accessible, which is kind of dope, right? You wheel your wheelchair in and take a shower. You're all spinning around on the soap. Whee! It's built bigger with nicer toilet. Not necessarily a nicer toilet, but, like a wider toilet and probably like a little ramp to go up and down on your wheelchair. Well, one day, Maria is carrying Artorias and they're walking past the guest bathroom and the door is open. And right when they pass the guest bathroom, Artorias starts freaking out, screaming at the top of his lungs, and is pinching Maria, pinching her hard. And this keeps happening. Whenever Art or Maria, whoever is carrying Artorias, if they pass the guest bathroom and that door is open, Artorias loses it and starts pinching people. The only way like a baby can react in a moment of intense fear. Is it? I don't know. I imagine a baby pinching someone would be a stress response. And this is where, Art and Maria, they go, that is really weird. Whenever we walk by the guest bathroom with Artorias, he freaks out. And Art goes, yeah, I got to be honest with you, Maria. That bathroom's always kind of freaked me out. Really? Yeah, Maria. Have you ever noticed that it seems darker than it should be? Like when that door is open and there should be just light coming in through the hallway light or through the open window in the kitchen, whatever, that bathroom seems darker than it should be. Maria, she had to agree. She goes, yeah, you are right. I've noticed that too. I just didn't really say it. Something is off about that guest bathroom. And now our son's reacting to it as well. Now, this wasn't an issue when the door was shut. And sometimes they would shut the guest bathroom door because it was creepy. They both thought it was kind of it gave them a creepy vibe. But if the door was opened for whatever reason, I'd be using that bathroom all the time just because it's closer to the living room and it's a wider bathroom. But he goes, every so often, Art and Maria say, every so often the guest bathroom door would be open. Sometimes it wouldn't be wide open. It would just be opened a little bit. But either way, when we walked past Artorias, if that bathroom door was open any amount, he began screaming, crying, and pinching. One time, late at night, Artorias begins screaming in the middle of the night. Art wakes up. He goes, this better not be a mimic. This better be my real son screaming, because I believe it woke them up as well. I think it was late enough that everyone was asleep. But anyways, Art and Maria got up to go check on Artorias, and they walk in the room, and it's him. He actually is screaming. Oh, little baby Artorias, are you going to be okay? Come here, buddy. And Art reaches down to pick up Artorias, and he realizes Artorias' whole body is stiff. He's moving, he's screaming, but it's like his entire body is rigid. And babies sometimes will do that. It's a stress response. They're just kind of tense up all their muscles. Sad to see a baby in that type of distress. That wasn't the only odd part. Artorias is screaming. Artorias is just flexed, stressed out. When Art reached down to pick him up, he noticed something. The baby was heavy. Heavier than he should be. They said it was like lifting a heavy weight. It just weighed so much as they tried to pick him up. Felt like he weighed a ton. And it was actually hard to lift him up out of his crib. His little body's stiff. Art, sometimes he'd be sitting there and he would hear Maria yelling for him. Art! Art, come here! Art! Yeah, okay, get up. He walks to the bedroom. Maria's not there. He hears her calling from the bedroom. He gets up, he walks to the bedroom. Maria's not there. He's like, what? He begins looking around the apartment. And Maria, where are you? You're calling for me? Maria wasn't even home. And this happened a few times. Dealing with a true mimic at this point. That's the part where you would go, okay, my baby crying and I get up to check on him and he's asleep. Maybe he was just crying in his sleep. Babies are weird. Maybe he fell asleep super fast. I don't know. But when your wife is calling for you and she's not even home, that's definitely either paranormal or mental illness. And this isn't a mental illness. And in the moment, you wouldn't know. You might be afraid, am I hearing stuff? Am I so stressed out? I'm like imagining my wife. I also, when, he told me he was hearing this mimic, and there's no proof to back any of this up, but I did think about this. I wonder how many times Art had an argument with a mimic. I wonder how many times Art was yelling through the house, having an argument with his wife, and his wife wasn't home. Because that's still going on. It's not like, because I haven't talked about them having those screaming matches for a while, those are still going on. Everything's kind of layering on top of each other. It's not like the one phenomenon stopped, the guest bathroom scariness, and now the mimic. Like, everything's just kind of layering on top of each other. I wonder if he's ever had an argument with a mimic. It would be really interesting, too, because two people who are screaming at each other who have never fought with each other before, if something could imitate their voices, it could definitely egg the argument on. And in the moment, you're like, what? Why would you even say that, Art? Why would you even think that? Art had said something different, but a mimic had impersonated him. There's no proof of that. They never said that in their story, but it was just the thought that I had. We're in 2020 right now. So they've lived in this apartment for 3 years. Artorias has grown up in this apartment. Artorias has grown up in this apartment. They've lived in this apartment. In 2020, right outside their apartment, this was a pretty famous case in the area. A man named Mike Ramos was shot and killed by the police outside of their apartment. Maria sent me over a news video involving the shooting, and she's like, there's my apartment. See that window right there? That's our apartment. That definitely is after all of the hauntings started, but it definitely wouldn't make things any better. A man being shot and killed right outside your apartment when it's already paranormally charged by an unknown entity or entities. But the real big problem started, and the beginning of the end was February 2021. And again, this was national news. This was one of the biggest, costliest winter storms in American history. February 2021, a huge winter storm moved through Texas. And in Austin and in Travis County altogether, minimum $200 billion worth of damage was done. And that's why it's considered the costliest natural disaster in the history of Texas and the United States as a whole. So they had this huge ice storm, which of course affected this apartment complex, which of course affected this apartment that Art, Maria, and Artorias are living in. They ended up, they had to leave because there were concerns that the roof was going to collapse on the apartment. This was a downstairs apartment as well, if I remember correctly. Yeah, because they were getting flooded as well from this huge storm. So they leave the apartment, but now it's time to come back. When they move back into the apartment, it's not long after the storm leaves that the mold appears. Mold everywhere all over this apartment. So Art and Maria, you don't want to live in a place with mold. You definitely don't want to raise a child in a place full of mold. They talked to the landlords and said, hey, we need to get a new apartment until you can get renovations done on this one, which is the law. Legally, the apartment complex had to do both of those things. They had to find them another place to live at the same complex and then restore the original apartment or just let them move into the new unit permanently. Everyone else whose apartment was damaged by this ice storm, that happened. They got another apartment. Their old one was restored. They can move back in. But the landlord, this is all alleged, right? The landlord, I trust Maria and Art, but just legally, the landlord said, no, we're not going to give you another apartment. You guys are going to continue to live in the mold room. That's what we call it back here in the management office, the mold mansion. We'll just get some people to come out and fix it. 3 different restoration teams from different companies, 3 different restoration companies were hired. They'd come in, they'd clean up all the black mold, and then it would come back. So they'd have to hire another group, and they'd come in and clean up all the black mold and came back. 3 different companies tried their hand at restoring this apartment, and it didn't work. It didn't work. Art and Maria said it almost looked like the place self-destructed. And there was no reclaiming it. It just wanted to be a rotting room. Not suitable for the living. Around this time, and you're probably thinking the same thing that I was when I was reading this, the fortune teller could tell she was going to lose her job and get a better one. That happened. Told her that they were going to move out. Why didn't she tell them about the haunted apartment? Well, they actually contact the fortune teller. The one that Maria had gone to so many years ago, because at this point it's been like 5 years. They tell the fortune teller what happened, because although she didn't predict the haunted apartment, it was a pretty big miss, she did predict everything else. They told the fortune teller about what was going on. The fortune teller told them, yeah, sorry about missing that. Probably shouldn't have used the crystal ball. Probably should have just used the normal crystal ball. But don't go back there. Do not go back there. I know that they're saying they'll restore it for you, and I know you're having all this trouble of where you're going to live at while this is all going on, but do not move back in there. There is something there, something sinister, and it has already affected your son, Artorius. So they followed the fortune teller's advice. They didn't go back to the apartment. No matter how many times the company would say, we'll try it again, we'll do another restoration group come out here. They said, no, we're not going to live there anymore. And they found a new place, eventually. And all of the screaming and the crying of Artorius late at night, all of that ended. The mimic sound, something imitating Maria's voice, ended. The pinching when walking by a particular room ended. And more importantly, because this really was the most dangerous thing. I know the health of your child is super important as well, but you need one component, otherwise it's all gone. You needed one main thing fixed. Maria, when she told me the story, she goes, we had to get a new place. It's stressful. We had money issues. Stressful. We're trying to work through all of this stuff. Stressful. Even just the stress of just normal relationship issues. Maria wrote, quote, we powered through it, and we've never fought like we had in that apartment. Unquote. So all of the internal strife was gone. Life wasn't perfect. They were struggling. But the fighting, the screaming, the shouting at each other stopped. Art and Maria told me, again, allegedly, right? I trust them, they're just allegedly, that as far as they know, that apartment had never been restored. Maybe even to this day. Maybe even under new ownership, that apartment never was able to be reclaimed. It sat empty. It was unfit for humans to live there, but a perfect place for a dark spirit to reign over. You know, it's an interesting story. Thank you so much, Art and Maria, for sharing it with me. It's a terrifying story in one key way. In one key way. We'll wrap it up like this. This idea that something's attached to your child. When we think about kids having, like, imaginary friends that turn out to possibly be a real ghost, that's a scary thought. Or imaginary friends that may be something more malignant, a demon, a harmful entity, that's scary as well. Kid telling you that she used to get chased around in her dreams by your old dead friends. Terrifying. All that stuff's terrifying. But when you factor in the physical health of your child, that's what makes this story uniquely chilling. The fact that this, whatever it was, we don't know if it was a ghost. Is it possible that somebody died in the downstairs bathroom? Sure, right? People do die all the time in bathrooms, and even if they don't die in the bathroom, bathrooms are very haunted. We've covered that on this show many times, actually. But was it something more evil than that, though? It almost would have to be. It would be more definitely than just your run-of-the-mill ghost if it is affecting the health of Artorias. You have to wonder, was Maria's sickness part of this paranormal threat? Was Artorias' premature birth part of this paranormal threat? A new thought popped in my head. I wonder if you could sue the apartment complex, not for the mold, not for them not fixing the apartment in time. Wouldn't this be a kick in the pants? That's one way to put it. If you could sue a landlord because your house or apartment was so haunted, it made your kid sick. I mean, to be fair, it would be pretty hard to prove. I mean, first you'd have to prove that ghosts are real, or at least your ghost is. And secondly, you'd have to prove, hey, listen, Artorias was on track to be a 9-month baby. But instead, he was an 8 and 3-week baby. Sorry, Artorias. He's like, oh, thanks for putting it that way. I never really thought of it that way. This baby came out early because of this horrible, malevolent entity living in the apartment you put me in. I just asked for an apartment, and you said, sure, I got a great one for you. You like people getting shot outside your window? Because that's going to happen here. You like rooms full of endless darkness that'll make your baby pinch you? You're like, wait, let me not sign the lease. No, it's too late. You already signed the lease. I'm walking you to your apartment. Hope you like getting pinched. I wonder if you could sue. You could say, my baby would, like, get your doctor in on the stand, and the doctor's like, damn it, I don't want to be associated with this trial. No, come on, doc. Doctor, remember my little baby in my belly? Would that baby have been 9 months in my stomach? The doctor's like, it's not really in your stomach. It's kind of in your womb. It just makes your belly look big. But anyways, yes, it is quite possible that Artorias would have been born 9 months instead of 8 months and 3 weeks, had she not lived in this apartment full of, why am I on stand again? Ghosts. Oh yeah, ghosts, I guess. It's possible. I wonder if you could sue somebody for that. You're all, Maria's like, evidence A, look at my arms, look how pinched they are. They've never recovered. She has all these little pinch scars on her. Here's the thing. I know I have a lot of international listeners who are probably going, that's ridiculous. Well, in America, you can sue anybody for anything. It doesn't mean you'll win. Most likely you wouldn't in a lot of cases, but you can sue anyone for anything in America. It's one of the great things about this country. Honestly, I've sued and been sued. But could you sue because of your baby's health? And, you know, you might think that's ridiculous. I'll tell you this, it's a lot more uplifting than the original idea I had. I was just going to keep talking about how sick Artorias was. And this evil entity, this actually does make sense. This popped in my head, and it's a little more lighthearted to end the week on. But Yeah, I mean, like, the defense would show up and they'd be like, Your Honor, of course ghosts don't exist. Ghosts aren't real. You know, it'd be boring, right? If the jury would be all, boo, boo, you suck, you're not entertaining at all. Bring back the ghost witness. Bring back the fortune teller. You know, the defense would just come off as a bunch of stodgy dorks, being like, ghosts don't exist at all. Ghosts don't exist at all. So how can something that doesn't exist make a baby be born early or be sick or pinch people a lot? Your Honor, I asked for this case to get dismissed on the grounds that the paranormal isn't real. And then I would go objection. I'm a lawyer now. I'd go object. Enough lawsuits and probably could be objection, Your Honor. I would like to suggest that we all go to the defense lawyer's house and we all stay up till 3. We all stay up till 3 in the morning. And the judge is like, huh? And I go, yes, the spookiest time of all. Everyone, the jury, judge, bailiff, and everyone else walking through the courthouse at that time. That serial killer who set it to trial, he gets to come too. We all go to the defense attorney's house at 3 in the morning and we're all just going to stay up late and shut all the lights off and sit in the dark. And we'll see if ghosts are real or not. And the judge goes, I'll allow it. He's super lazy. He's just like, whatever. I'm literally 20 minutes from retirement, sure, whatever. And then we would go to the defense lawyer's house and we would scare him. I think legally that's assault. I'm all, boo, jumping out, shaking him violently, but I'm wearing a white sheet. I'm a ghost. Believe in me. That would be the defense major and really only defense that ghosts don't exist. I mean, also they could say, sir, obviously ghosts didn't cause this. It was clearly the black mold growing in this department long before the winter storm. Whoops, sorry. The landlord's like, you buffoon. I wonder if you could sue someone if you had a bad outcome because of a haunting in their place. And they knew it, or they should have been aware that it's possible that it could have been haunted. In the sense that previous residents were like, I can't be there anymore. It's haunted. After about 3 or 4 people saying that, when a family moves in and then all of a sudden their baby gets sick, it would be the same thing as if you had a couple residents come out and been like, hey, I can't live here anymore. Every time I pour a glass of water, it's not water, it's liquid lead. The landlord's like, I'll get that. The landlord's like, I thought you were a Terminator. I thought you would love that. I thought it would be a selling point. You're like, no, too much lead in the pipes. And, maybe you go in and do a half-hearted effort to clean the lead out, but you're like, I'm tired. My arms hurt. You're all just trying to file out the lead yourself. You don't realize it's coming out of the groundwater or something. You're like, I don't know. I keep filing down this pipe and it just makes more and more lead. I give up. And then a family moved in and they all get serious lead poisoning and the baby gets born with like a big old swollen brain. But not like superhuman intelligence kind of brain, just like a very painful brain growth. And then you could sue the landlord and say, hey, we found out that everyone who lived here before complained about the lead levels in the water and you didn't tell us that. And you watched my pregnant wife as we were on the tour, she's like, I'm thirsty. I'm going to drink right out of the tap. The landlord's like, hey, listen, honestly, I thought your wife was a Terminator. I thought that she loved that stuff. I thought growing inside her was the future destructor of mankind itself. If you could prove that the landlord knew the place was haunted and they hid that from you, and you could prove you got damages from that spirit, I think you'd have a case. I don't know if you'd win. But with a jury, with a good enough jury, one that are cool and exciting and not some stuffy no ghost believers, make sure they're not on your jury, you might be able to win. Because you could say, clearly my son, you're like, Artorias, act extra sick and pinch me a lot as you're on the witness stand. Mommy, come here, I want to pinch you. Look at what he's doing. The curse has never been lifted. The jury's like, oh no, they're all hiding their arms. You go, clearly, look at my son, he's a pinch man. He just pinches people all the time. He has to show more damages than that. But what I'm saying is that as far as I know, Artorias is doing great today. But you know what I mean? Like you could put his little arm in a sling. Okay, that's fraud, right? You're like, hey, Artorias, cough, and then make your head spin around. throw up all over the jury. They'll think you're possessed. No, I think Artorias is doing fine now, but you could sue. You could sue. Would you win? Maybe. If you had a good jury, a cool jury, they're all wearing sunglasses, you're like, oh, these guys knows what's up, they're awesome. If they knew the place was haunted, if they knew there was some sort of evil spirit there, the landlords would be liable for this, I believe. Because they knew it was there. Now, if they didn't know it was there, if you were the first people to ever complain about the spirit, then yes. If the previous tenant died there, you still couldn't go, because someone dies everywhere. You couldn't go, a previous tenant died there, now I'm being haunted, you should have known his ghost would have been left behind. Landlord would go, we're an apartment complex. People die here all the time. Some guy got shot outside your apartment one day, remember? Oh, yeah, I remember that. But if previous residents complain about the haunting, I think you'd have a case, because there is, even if the landlord didn't believe in ghosts, after the third or fourth resident left because it was haunted, lending it out to someone else and not telling them that, and then that spirit causing serious health problems for their child, I think you'd have a case. Don't take this as right now. Art and Marie are doing a little dance. They're like, oh, we're going to be millionaires. Take it with, I'm not a lawyer, obviously. You might not be worth your time, but it could be. Who knows? But anyways, interesting story. And it's always interesting getting stories from you guys as well. That's always really fun. I mean, it's fun for me, right? I didn't get pinched. It's fun for me to read. Thank you so much for letting me share it. We got one more story coming up for viewer-submitted story. It was supposed to be a week, but everything went crazy. I'm just waiting for a few more details. I sent Robert, the guy who told me the story, an email to get some dates and stuff like that to make sure I'm telling the story correctly. So once I get that information, we'll cover that hopefully next week. And then next week, I know this is late, but a late announcement, but May 29th, we're going to have our Dead Rabbit Radio May movie night. And then May 30th, we're going to have our Dead Rabbit Radio movie morning. But I'll go into more detail on that next week, but just a heads up. It'll be our normal time, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Friday, and 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Saturday. But it's going to be a blast. Thank you guys so much I know it's been a crazy week. Some crazy stuff, some crazy scheduling, but I'm so glad you guys checked out the episode. And if you're looking for a good paranormal lawyer, you know who to call, not the Ghostbusters. Call this guy right here. I'll have you winning so much money, you won't have to pinch pennies. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm so glad you listened to it today. Have a great weekend, guys.